Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups linked to an illegal poker operation tied to the mafia.
There could not be a bigger difference between the reputation of Chauncey Billups as a coach versus his reputation as a player. As a player, he was a well-respected leader among his teammates. After a rough early start to his career, Billups' arrival to Detroit catapulted his career to new heights. He developed into the most level-headed, disciplined point guard ever, eventually leading his team to a championship and back-to-back finals appearances. Detroit saved his NBA career. The media loved him so much that everyone forgot he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman back when he was a rookie. This was a major reason why the Celtics, who drafted him, decided to trade him away mid-season, because they didn't want this negative attention surrounding their team. That was the only stain on Billups' legacy, up until now, with his arrest for operating a sophisticated illegal gambling scheme. But it wasn't just this that caused the NBA world to turn on him. When you look deeper into Billups' time as a coach, you'd find that the way he became head coach in the first place was very bizarre and out of the ordinary. Some would even say his entrance to the organization was a calculated maneuver, and a disgrace to the entire coach hiring process. Let's take a look at this scandal and how the worst coach in basketball shamelessly sabotaged the Blazers organization.
That pressure thing is nothing to me, man. I do the best I can and let the chips fall where they may. You know that about me by now, quick.
With the NBA's openness about integrating sports gambling into their sport, it was only a matter of time until scandals like this popped up. Now, we've seen it happen with Malik Beasley, Terry Rozier, and Jontay Porter, all of whom faced federal investigations into their gambling, which broke the NBA's code of conduct. We've even seen former stars like Gilbert Arenas be involved in operating an illegal gambling business in his own house, which he also got arrested for. However, this bombshell of an announcement was different. Billups wasn't even charged with gambling on NBA games, but orchestrating a multi-layered operation that was backed by the mafia. This was unprecedented. Billups became the first head coach to be arrested for something like this. Allegedly the most complex network of gambling, fraud, extortion, robbery, and money laundering to ever grace the realm of NBA basketball. It makes you wonder how a player who made over $100 million in his NBA career and with a $20 million contract as a head coach could possibly be so greedy and throw his life away. For Billups, this whole scandal came out of nowhere. Usually we hear in the news about people who are going bankrupt or have financial issues. Like recently with Malik Beasley, who had trouble paying his rent, or Antoine Walker, whose mansion got foreclosed. But there was nothing that indicated Billups had financial issues, which is why this is such a shocking revelation. For the Blazers, unfortunately, his entrance to the organization had always been quite bizarre, as the entire fan base was apprehensive towards him. He's arguably the worst coach in basketball, yet for some reason the Blazers even gave him an extension on his contract. Why does this team, who've had great coaches for most of their history, have an unprecedented love affair with a horrendous coach? Perhaps the relationship between Blazers GM Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups goes further back than you think. Let's rewind a bit. Back in the summer of 2021, the Blazers fired their longtime coach Terry Stotts, who'd been with the team for 9 years. Stotts actually became head coach at the same time that Damian Lillard got drafted. The two of them formed a close relationship. Through thick and thin, they endured several tumultuous eras of the franchise, from all the injuries that destroyed their previous core of players, to the loss of LaMarcus Aldridge in free agency. The Blazers experienced many setbacks over the course of the Damian Lillard era, but one thing remained consistent. Stotts was his guy. An offensive genius who did everything he can to help Lillard blossom into one of the most lethal scoring threats in the history of the sport. His teams always ranked near the top of the league in offense year after year, but ultimately fell short of his goal to win the championship in a stacked conference. But that would soon change. When the team realized they needed to go in a different direction, it started with the rise of Joe Cronin in the front office. For over 15 years, he held several roles within Blazers management, before being promoted to assistant GM, and eventually the actual GM. Following the departure of Terry Stotts, the Blazers were expected to engage in a long, arduous process in search of their next head coach. This was a huge deal back then. There was a massive list of criteria they were looking for. Like, for example, They need to get along with Lillard. They needed somebody with years of experience in coaching, because this was a team filled with veterans and they all preferred a veteran coach. They needed someone who put more emphasis on defense. Heck, Lillard even had several conversations with Joe Cronin and gave his suggestions for coaches he preferred. Nevertheless, it turns out that Cronin never had any intention to listen to Lillard, nor conduct interviews with other coaches. A report even surfaced that Lillard was frustrated with the head coach hiring process, because it was obvious to him that nobody cared about his opinion. From the very beginning, when Joe Cronin took over as GM, his mind was already set on the guy he wanted, Chauncey Billups. Billups was the antithesis of the kind of coach they were supposed to get, as he did not meet any of the supposed criteria they were looking for. He was inexperienced, he only had 1 year of experience as an assistant coach, and he didn't have a good relationship with Lillard. However, soon it became crystal clear why Billups, of all people, was the guy chosen by Cronin. They had an existing friendship that spanned 30 years. Believe it or not, Cronin was a very accomplished basketball player back in his day. He grew up in Colorado, the same area as Billups, and back in the 1990s, their high school teams faced each other in a championship game, where Cronin's team ultimately lost. Billups had a rivalry with Cronin's team, but it was a rivalry out of respect. Cronin knew that Billups was the talk of the entire state, the best prospect to ever come out of Denver, Colorado. He was a massive Billups glazer, even claiming that, quote, at the age of 15, Billups was by far the best player in the state. Not just that, but their relationship was deeper than you might think. Their families knew each other. Billups was close friends with Cronin's sister, Katie, and she attended Colorado State. In Billups' first interview upon joining the Blazers, he was asked about his relationship with Cronin, simply saying, "We go back a long way." Their connection was deep, but in the eyes of the fans and the Blazers media, the hiring of Billups was a complete sham. This was probably the worst nepotism hire in the league, at least among management, because they made a mockery of the entire process and gaslit the entire fan base into thinking Cronin was actually trying to find a competent coach. He wasn't. He had no intention to. He just wanted to hire his longtime friend. Through his time in Portland, Billups has always tried to say the right things. For instance, defense had been the main area of concern for years. Under Terry Stotts, they were a bottom 5 defensive team for a long time. Billups knew this was something they needed to improve on, so that was his primary talking point to get the fans on his side. In reality, it was all talk. In his first season there, they were dead last in the league in defensive rating. They remained an abysmal defensive team for all 4 seasons he was there. Most importantly, it was his strained relationship with Damian Lillard that further damaged the team chemistry. In December 2021, a few months after Billups joined the team, he had this to say about his players. Quote, "Competitive fire and pride, that's something you either have or don't have. That's something you can't turn off and turn on. I've never seen a team that needs its bench to inspire our starters. That's crazy to me. It's supposed to be the other way around." It was a direct statement bashing Lillard's efforts and the entire starting lineup. Everything the Blazers worked so hard to build was crumbling. Lillard also expressed his frustration playing in a new offense he wasn't used to. He'd always excel in a free-flowing offense, allowing him the chance to see the court and make the best decision based on his intuition. With Billups, however, he preferred a more rigid game plan, taking control himself and thus limiting Lillard's freedom. This led to his worst start of any season. In his first 20 games, he shot the ball horribly, the worst efficiency he's ever had. The team dropped from being the number 2 offense under Terry Stotts to the 27th ranked offense with Billups. Granted, Lillard missed a lot of time due to injuries, but even when he played, their offense was still horrible. Fast forward a year later and their relationship reached a breaking point. Towards the end of the year, the Blazers had a chance to make the playoffs as Lillard was having the best year of his life. But in late March, Billups and Cronin made the executive decision to sit him out for the remainder of the season, so the Blazers can tank for a higher pick. They ended up losing 9 of their final 10 games of the season, missing the playoffs and entering the lottery. A severely pissed off Lillard sat down and talked to them, wondering what in the world is the plan here. He was under the impression that they were trying to build a contender, cause at his age, the only thing that's left to do is win a championship. Now realizing their plan is to tank, he had no desire to be there. The man, once enamored for his loyalty to the city, could not take it anymore. He left the team to try and win the title elsewhere. Though that also failed. You know how that turned out. Though eventually he resolved his tension with Portland and returned to the city to be with his family. At least this time, Billups won't be around anymore. In theory, the way Billups entered the organization as their coach was quite sketchy. He's without question the worst coach in the history of this franchise, and his 4 seasons there represent a dark age in Blazers basketball. The worst part is they had the audacity to offer him an additional 2-year extension over the summer. Like, why? I guess their record improved a little bit, but that's more so due to the natural development of their younger players. What did Billups even do to garner such an extension besides being Joe Cronin's friend? Maybe with his arrest and departure from the team, the Blazers could finally do what they were supposed to do in the first place. Launch an actual search for a new coach. Someone who's the best fit for a young rising team. If they find that perfect coach, they could help the team reach the next level. Anyway, that's all folks. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.